Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to today's Grain Market Blast. It is, I believe, it's Wednesday the 24th September, if my memory serves me right. You join myself and the glamorous, the gorgeous, the goddess of grain herself, Angie Setzer, where Angie will be providing us with the latest pricing flows, market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, I'll be a good boy and get the legals out the way. Nothing discussed on the Spaces session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement, yada, yada, yada. That goes for me, Angie, PIQ, anyone else really. Angie, how are you?
I am super. Thanks for asking. I will never ever not answer that question that way. I can't help it.
No,
It
never.
shows my age. Like for those of you, like there's only a sliver of people that probably get it. You know, all of us were born.
But you know what? It's one of those where if the other one didn't say it like that, then it'd be like a cry for help. You'd
Yeah,
be like,
exactly.
Something's up.
You know something's wrong if that's the way. If I answer it, I'm good. Or if I ever say I'm living the dream, just call the authorities at that point in time. So, which you very well might say that as we work our way into harvest further. No. But here we are. Happy Wednesday. Many things going on today. Lots of moving pieces, which we love, more than anything. But it's hard to kind of say like how many of them are directly grain related, though there are a few. I would say first things first, numero uno bullet point. And honestly, that's not a pun.
To be honest, just a quick sidebar. This one, the added bonuses of the Grey Market Blast is it helps my Spanish lessons.
Yes, see? That's just it. For those of you who don't habla español, I don't even remember what word I used, so you're screwed. But anyway, bullet point number 1, Russia, U-turn, Uno, there we go. That's just what I learned about that ruthless card game that taught me how to trade grains. But anyway, we had a pretty significant change in tone yesterday, you could say. And to me, I'm still surprised at the lack of concern the market shows as a whole over just what is taking place in the Black Sea. And so to see yesterday, President Trump kind of come out, and I'm going back down to the PIQ Newswire tweet that was very in-depth and helped me.
Really handsome guy.
That's what, super smart. Yes, also. Trump said yesterday, I think Ukraine with support of the EU and NATO is basically in the position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. Like, mind you, we're not just talking about cause he said it twice. He said first, their form prior to the war, but then he was like, if they really, really, really push it further into his little novel, his soliloquy that he wrote yesterday, if they really, really push it, they could probably get Crimea back too.
This is it. Cause exactly that, cause it was such a long worded message as well. I got to the first 2 sentences and I was like, bloody hell, this is
you had a headache. Yeah, you're like, my eyes just went cross. I don't know what to do with this now.
And then I carried on reading. It just got worse.
Yeah. Yes, it did, because it snowballed. And so, it was kind of interesting to see, and our friend Michael Brown had posted, August 8th, Trump on Russia. Ukraine will be swapping some of its territory. Fast forward 6 weeks later, and it's suddenly, I think, Ukraine's position to win all of its territory back. And so, I think really the biggest thing to me, reading between the lines and this whole entire sort of, like I said, this big diatribe or whatever, this big statement that he put out yesterday, this big, change in direction. To me, the biggest thing was, I think that, the U.S. has been encouraging this attack of these refineries, of this, basically, which I think most everyone, that's not like I came to that and I'm like, I am a genius. Cause I think most everyone's kind of like, yeah, Ange, no shit. It is really starting to impact their ability, to seek revenue. We have been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, right? When it comes to, they're saying that they have this much wheat and they have this much this and this much that, and they have all of this source of revenue and yada, yada, yada. And friends of mine that are kind of more involved in the inner day to day, or at least have some connections on the inside, you could say, are like, structurally stuff is really bad. And that's part of what's going on with this lack of grain flow into, the port system. Like you're seeing, they have competitive pricing. Yeah, they say they have plenty of supplies available and some of these other things, but you're really not seeing the exports indicate that. And so we'll watch here over the next 5 weeks or so just on how that works. But I think like to see Trump, kind of reiterate like, hey, the EU and NATO have my blessing to do whatever it takes to help Ukraine win this war. We're going to continue to give them weapons. They can do with it whatever they want. If there's an approved aircraft in your space, in a NATO country's airspace, shoot it down.
Yeah.
This whole entire conversation is one that you could say we are really escalating it. But not only are we really escalating what's taking place in Ukraine, because Russia has said, hey, we're doubling down. We're going to continue on this offensive. You guys don't
Yes.
know what you're doing. We're not a paper tiger. We're a real bear. And I
Well,
was
this
like,
is
oh,
it.
that
Like
was cute.
the whole thing was really like, like you said already, like really inflammatory. Especially like,
Yes.
did you hit like I thought like I almost kind of wanted to put my arms around Trump and give him a little bit of a hug when he was like,
Yes.
yeah, the relationship I thought we had didn't really happen. And I'm like,
Unfortunately, it didn't really exist or whatever. And so like that, to me, I think we have to continue to watch. And I think, we've already heard signs of that Russia is hitting more in the way of Ukraine's infrastructure, their railroads, their, things near their port
yeah,
system and some of this. We've had civilian ships hit in the last couple of weeks. Things like that we've ignored. Like we've just gotten to the point of where we
yeah.
ignore it.
Well,
And
this is
I,
it. This is a problem that's as old as headlines have been going through
yes,
on news tickers. People, you do get markets and traders and commentators and whatnot. Everyone becomes like headline blind. You see the
yes,
same headline over and over, it just becomes nothing. And then you really need
yes.
to ratchet up in the escalation for it to kind of matter again. Which, on face value, it shouldn't. We shouldn't need that to happen. But it is a real thing, and people need to be aware of that.
That's where we're at. I think it's going to take us getting, through October and recognizing that the flow of grain isn't there like it should be, or that, watch and see what Russia does. Like I still have, I think PTSD kind of from 2020, when they started restricting the flow of grain and some of these other things. And like it ruined Christmas because we just and
Yeah.
I say it ruined
It.
Christmas. It didn't ruin Christmas. It was great, but you didn't have a break anymore because the market was
Yes.
rallying and like all of these other things. Like
Well,
it
it's
was
one
a
of those.
good Christmas, but it
It's
was the,
it's a cliche that kind of I probably roll out far too often, but I think I think it's a sign of the times that it's very very applicable a lot at the moment. It's one of those added to the pile of it's not that important until it really really is important. However,
yes.
this is one of those things that already is really important. It's just the market hasn't kind of comprehended that yet. No
Yes.
comprende. There we go.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's where we're at is like, this is going to be a huge deal. Like the world is counting on, around 55, 60 million metric ton, kind of running rough math of wheat in particular, out of Russia and Ukraine both. And so we have to be really careful that we don't just assume and we continue to hear, oh, there's these impending big, crushes of grain. Like I read another thing yesterday that the European farmer is going to have to liquidate their supplies here very soon because they have bills due. Maybe they've liquidated their supplies. They didn't have enough grain and they still have bills due. Like we're not even like there is a crisis looming in some of these places and everyone's just assuming that the farmer is sitting on these bushels like they're too stupid to figure out what they've got going on. And I don't know if that's the case. And so if you do see a hole created, because of the Black Sea escalation, because of the situation in Russia, Ukraine, if it starts, that could be the one, all of a sudden, if we have this lack of supply, suddenly you recognize or the market works to either push bushels out like they need to be, or uncover the fact that we don't have what we thought we did. And so we'll see. And
So
maybe
would
nothing
you
comes of it. We just kind
kind
of
of
continue to,
would you
yeah.
kind of equate it to like, we're in that kind of period where there's a significant chance the tide could go out, and there's a
Yes.
significant chance that turns out some of the people we've been talking to are swimming around next to
Are
us,
trunk
start
free.
bolt naked. Yes,
Yes,
trunk free.
exactly.
There we go.
There are trunk free people out there that are just hoping like hell that, no one catches on. And that's, like I said, I've had friends here recently, even here in the US that have been like, oh yeah, I missed my target origination by 10 million bushels this year. And I told my, like it's still on the farm. No, it's not. It is not on the farm September 10th. Are you kidding me? That's not on the farm. You know what I mean? Like
Trunk
you just
free
missed it.
markets. There you
It
go.
went
Well, there you
out.
go.
Yeah.
That's the name
So
of our that's the name of our new grey
that'll be
market
our
fund.
podcast. We'll see. Yeah.
trunk
So,
trunk
but
free markets.
trunk free markets, that's what it is. So we'll see. The Russia U-turn to me is something that we really have to pay attention to. I've been saying this for a while, so I hate to hear myself say it again and again. But it does take some time to shed some light on things.
Yeah.
You can lie, you can bluff for an extended period of time and sometimes you can get away with it crop year to crop year. But we'll see kind of how, the grain flow works out and some of these other things as we move forward, because the grain is going to, if it's there, it's got to start moving. Like, it's got to move. You can't just keep saying that the farmer's holding on to it. Like, that's just where we're at. So, on the other side, the flip side, we've got the Argentina Support. And this could change some things now. So we had the whole Argentina situation, right, with the reduction in the export taxes. We've seen farmers selling, pretty exceptional 2 million metric ton, give or take, I think is where we landed kind of on the estimates of how many soybeans have been sold, by the Argentina farmer here over the last couple of days. China has basically soaked up the majority of them. Like the Argentine farmers sold 2 million metric tons. The Chinese buyer has reportedly bought, 20 cargoes worth. So basically about 1.3 million metric tons. You've seen meal collapse and some of these other things basis wise, and, Brazilian basis backed off a little bit and yada, yada, yada. And so everyone's kind of like, oh my gosh, Argentina is going to completely cover the November China position. And they could, our friend Eduardo at AgriInvest had estimated they had around 120 cargoes to cover, I think at the end of, last week or the middle part of last week for November timeframe, if they buy what would be considered an average number of cargoes that they tend to buy. And so to see Argentina cover 20 of them, they still have bushels they have to buy. And so the $1 million question becomes, does the Argentina farmer continue to liquidate supply? Or, has the currency firming and the idea that, you're going to see the U.S. continue? Like, I feel like you'll probably have 1 or 2 more days of farmer selling simply because of the currency and the idea that the currency continues to firm and they're further ahead to liquidate supplies before that happens. Kind of capture some of this leftover, strength, but I don't think you see a continuation of exceptional farmer selling. I think you see folks get caught up here. Maybe they do liquidate 2 to 3 million metric tons overall. But I don't think they sell all 18 that they're thought to be having on farm. And all of a sudden, basically China doesn't have to come to us. Now, I will say this, China doesn't have to come to us at this point. Like, they've covered some Argentina stuff. They could definitely start liquidating reserves if they have them. But even if they started liquidating reserves, if they have them, that just simply means that they're going to show up later in our export window. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting to watch, just the whole dynamic of everything, because the U.S. is now basically offering $20 billion of I'm going to ask ChatGPT to explain it to me like I'm a golden retriever, basically.
Tell me about it. I've been doing that one many, many times.
Like,
I think maybe we've discovered what the A in MAGA, the first A in MAGA stands for.
Right, exactly. That's what it is.
Argentina.
Make Argentina great again. That's what we got going on right now. Whatever. They are an important and it's not, I don't think we're just giving them, like I said, I got to do some more research, but for the most part right now, like what I would say in this is all of the talk of, oh my God, we're going to break the band. We're going to go to this on the peso. The Argentina government's going to collapse, yada, yada, yada. It's not going to happen. And I would say to see the U.S. really kind of, boldly stand behind Milei and say, we are going to do whatever it takes to help stabilize your economy, I think will definitely go a long way in next month's election.
Yes.
To me.
Yeah.
I
completely agree.
More of a political that is more of anything. So when it comes down to it, Argentina's probably survived this calamity. And so now people are starting to ask if they have the U.S. coming in and helping them with all of this, are you going to see a premature closing of the export tax vacation, holiday, blah, blah, is there, so we'll watch that. And lastly, interesting couple of things on the China side of, the news. Yeah, to me, there's signs that things have been said and things there are goalposts, I guess, at this point, or measuring sticks. To see China come out last night and say, we're no longer going to ask for developing nation status of the WTO. That has been something that Trump has been screaming about since 2005. I don't know. That has been one of the parts that the U.S. has complained about. Like, you shouldn't be able to be considered a developing nation. You've been considered a developing nation for 24 years now, right? And I think 2001 was when they were first kind of considered that or whatever. Like, it's been a hot minute. And obviously China's not developing anymore. Like, they are, but they're like a superpower. And so that I think is a sign of something. And then today you saw NVIDIA come out and announce that they and Alibaba are working on, let me find it, Alibaba shares leap on NVIDIA partnership plans. So NVIDIA is going to work with Alibaba to, basically create, which Alibaba's Hong Kong listed, but it's a Chinese
Yeah,
company.
exactly.
Like to me, that's a sign that there are things that are taking, like there's
Yes.
obviously things that are
Yeah.
still happening. Like NVIDIA was tossed out on its ear a week ago,
But
in theory.
Nvidia's been chucked out the room. They've given a big hug, chucked out the room countless times.
Yeah,
I keep telling myself, like when I wake up, it's like, is today going to be the day
they're
without
like
an
a
Nvidia headline?
freaking
Not
kid,
today.
right? Exactly. They're like a kid in a divorce over here. Like it's a great thing and it's a terrible thing
Two
all at the same
Christmases.
time. 2 Christmases, but I forgot after soccer practice. I don't know what I like or don't like. That's NVIDIA right now. And so that's basically where we're at. And I thought that was really interesting to see. Like here's one move, here's
Yeah.
another move. I think that there's a lot that's still happening behind the scenes that, we're seeing, I think Basent said today that the rare earth minerals are moving, yada, yada, yada. And so I feel like we're on the cusp of something, like, and I'm trying not to be driven completely by hope. I just don't think it works right for either economy, to continue. Like, it's literally just soybeans at